What's up, Cory? How you doing?
Hey, Peter. Good to see you, man.
I'm so sorry it's taken so long to do this. We should have done this like at least a year ago, and here we are.
I think we talked about it at Stacy's Crypto Springs in like fall of 2019 when I was like getting ready to launch Give Bitcoin.
Yeah, man. And then we keep talking about it, and then shit gets in the way. But do you know what? Maybe this was the universe telling us because I I really want to talk about this Wall Street's bet stuff with you.
I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Clubhouse. I want to talk
Yes.
about Adonis Breedlove. I want to talk about all
Oh,
kinds of things.
Jesus. I want to talk about Breedlove. I'm kind of in love with that dude.
Who doesn't want to talk about Breedlove?
I want to be Breedlove when I grow up. He's like my new
Yeah,
superhero. But I want to talk about Clubhouse. Can we start with Clubhouse?
sure.
Because I think it's a shorter one. Right. So I like Clubhouse, but I also hate Clubhouse. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few days off it because it became such a distraction. Like I didn't do shit for like 3 days. All I was on there and was going on there. And then I was arguing with shitcoiners. And I ended up having an argument with Mashinsky because he came on and he's just a tool. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
fuck that guy, fuck this. And then I nearly got kicked out of a room for it. And then I was like, I need a break. But I think it's a great opportunity to teach people about Bitcoin, and therefore it's a great opportunity for shitcoin salesmen to come in and mislead people.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I saw when I got on, which was probably the third week of December. I think they kind of opened up a new round of like, okay, everybody gets 5 invites or whatever. Somebody got me on, and Bitcoiners were outnumbered like 10 to 1 by altcoin salesmen, which is, usually not the engineers. I don't really fault somebody for trying to code something and like not worrying about the finance as much. It's usually the altcoin founders, and in particular, the worst voices are the crypto fund managers, because they're the ones that actually do the most FUD spreading about Bitcoin, the most lying, the most selling, because they can't get paid unless they get their 2 and 20 off of pretending that there's something to manage in this space other than Bitcoin. And so they're kind of the ones that are most lethal because they talk slow, they talk serious. Sometimes they have accents, and it sounds truthy to quote Stephen Colbert. And if somebody isn't there with the actual ammunition to combat, as Nick Szabo would say, influential ignorance, they just have the run of the place. And they were using Bitcoin in their titles, their room titles, like you would expect them to, you know, orange washing, Bitcoin affinity marketing. I love Bitcoin, buy my shitcoin. Like it was just rampant. And there were only like a few people like Alex Thorne and Jeet Sidhu and Terrence Yang, trying to hold it down in the Bitcoin club. And they all have jobs and they could only do like one show a week. And so, yeah, we basically coordinated a massive invite push for all the Bitcoiners. And we've brought on about 1,000 Bitcoiners in the last month and a half. And now there's no room that says Bitcoin that doesn't have Bitcoiners in it equipped to, you know, squash false narratives.
Yeah, that's good. It's really important. Another interesting thing, actually, I was talking to Brecky about this the other day. Obviously, mutual friend of ours, because we were in a room together. It's a real eye opener and a reminder of how complex Bitcoin is to understand when you first get in, because some of the questions are basic, very basic. And you kind of forget about that once you've been in for a few years. You just you just forget about that. But some of the questions are so basic, and therefore it's really easy to understand how someone can be sold on some kind of altcoin. I found myself arguing with somebody the other day about the fundamentals of Dogecoin, and they were like telling me why Dogecoin is. This wasn't in Clubhouse actually. This was on Twitter afterwards. But I'd been in this Dogecoin room. I was thinking, what the fuck am I arguing with you about Dogecoin for? Like, if you think that, go ahead. Why am I wasting my time? But it's this unit bias that people have, and then they'll say things like, "Oh, you're an OG, you're already rich. Like this is our chance." It's like, firstly, I'm not rich, but secondly, you're talking shit.
Yeah, it's hard. Honestly, like we've had to develop a whole roster of like backup material. So we created, like a short sheet that's kind of like a Bitcoin one pager, get started here. And when somebody comes in with super basic questions and clearly have giant misconceptions, and you don't want to derail like a good chat about the future of Bitcoin or Bitcoin versus central banks or regulation or whatever it is, we just point them to like, swanbitcoin.com/clubhouse. And that's kind of like get started here. or we'll ask them to like read Jan Pritzker's book, which we give away, and things like that, and say like, glad to have you here. These are important questions to find the answers to, but we have 700 people in the room, and 699 of them have done their research. Feel free to come back in a few days. Would love to hear some of your questions about Jan's book.
And you've also got swanxrp.com.
There is swanxrp.com now that somebody from Clubhouse created, and it's fantastic, and you should check it out.
Love it, dude. Love it. Okay, so I think Clubhouse is a great opportunity. I think we do need to foster it. And the other thing about it is interesting. I think it's basically an evolution of Twitter. So you can't, when you're on Twitter, people are all shouting and arguing with each other. And sometimes when I've had that, I was like, let's make a podcast, and you get on really well and you have a great conversation. I think Clubhouse allows for some really good conversations. So we should foster it. We should push it. But like you said,
I think it's a tool. I think it's a tool for podcasters, because what you'll see if you have a popular podcast or a big social media following and you put in a little bit of time on Clubhouse, you will immediately have a very large following. And then you will be able to leverage that for anything that you want to do. I had this conversation with Nathaniel on Twitter yesterday, and then he joined a room and we talked about it some more on Clubhouse last night. And the podcast experience is something that you can put on Clubhouse. The other things you can do on Clubhouse, you can't put in a podcast, because Clubhouse enables like 100 different ways or 1,000 different ways to engage with audio, whereas a podcast is, a kind of limited set of things. So what I think you'll see is you'll probably, when they make it a little bit easier to pipe in like really good audio to Clubhouse, right now we're using like a Bluetooth speaker and holding it up to a second iPhone and stuff like that. But you'll basically see most podcasts, I think, will broadcast the show, whether live or taped. They'll have like an airing of the show on Clubhouse. It'll aggregate thousands of people in the audience. And then you'll have a Q&A with either the host or the guests or both, and be able to have like an interactive overtime on Clubhouse after the show. So when I said that to Nathaniel, he was like, oh yeah, of course I would do that.
Well, it's like it's a hybrid. I don't think you're going to get away from wanting these like intimate one-on-one chats.
No, absolutely not. But of course you can have that on Clubhouse too. Like if you don't have a podcast that you've built up across all the different channels and you don't have the money for production and everything, you can monologue and be the only person on stage. You can have one person on stage. You see Balaji and Naval having one-on-one chats with nobody on stage except for them. That's very doable.
Yeah, I've thought about it. It's like, right, do I need a Clubhouse strategy alongside my Twitter strategy and my Instagram and my links? I was like, oh fuck. So I don't. I think I'm just going to dip in and out and keep doing my thing with the podcast. But I do like it. I do like it. But I've had to turn the alerts off on my phone, because it's like you look up, it's like Cory and Brecky and American Hodler in a room. It's like, it's like they're my friends. I want to go and talk to them. But like, shit, I've got work to do.
It draws you in. It really does. It's a sticky platform. If people are curious about where I think it's going, they just announced their raise of 100 mil on $1 billion valuation on January 24th. And they have about 2 million people after having a 1 million 6 weeks ago. And they could be already, 50 million plus. They're just scaling their servers and stuff. I think they'll be in the hundreds of millions by the end of this year. And I think by the end of 2022, it'll be a $100 billion company.
How do you think it makes its money?
They've already said what they're going to start with, kind of Patreon model. They're just going to let tipping. They're going to enable tipping. So one of the things I'm trying to do is I just got connected to Chris Lyons, who's the Andreessen partner that sits on the board. Got connected with him yesterday and trading notes. And I'm going to try really, really, really hard for them to enable tipping and sats. And I'm going to try to marshal you and Marty and Stefan and Safe and everybody to try to make that push to the Clubhouse founders. The problem with Andreessen being involved is obviously they're one of the biggest altcoin promoting forces in the world with their $800 million for blockchain funds. So it may be very, very difficult for them to agree to have just Bitcoin. And I don't really want to open up that platform to a bunch of like Litecoin and polka dots and whatever else is in their portfolio.
Nah, fuck that. You don't want that. I think it would, if they did a Patreon thing where you can actually create your own rooms and people can subscribe to come into them. That's actually kind of interesting. You could hold private, events in there. That itself is, kind of cool. And they have, in some ways, I think they've benefited from this COVID thing in that, like I described it the other day. I did a show about this because we're going to move on to Wall Street Bets. I did a Defiant show about it, and I'm pretty sure I described Clubhouse in there as like, it's kind of like a conference. It's kind of like a 24/7, 365 conference where you can just run panels whenever you want. And I think if they allowed room subscriptions, that might be interesting. I'd be interested in that.
I mean, you're right. It's a bit of radio. It's a bit of Twitter. It's a bit of in-person conversation, whether at conferences or just with your friends. And, and it's a bit of podcasting because it's just people talking, and it's the product choices that you make to enable or not enable different ways of engaging. And what I will say is really obvious in the early going is that this is not Meerkat with Periscope coming around the corner and Meerkat's gone. Like, this experience needs to be so finely tuned by a team that really cares about it and makes good choices. And it already does have a very strong network effect. Twitter Spaces will not work. Facebook Rooms. Did you even know about Facebook Rooms? They've had audio and video chat for Facebook groups for a long time. Nobody cares. It's the wrong graph. Like, I would be horrified to start an audio chat with the Swan signal or the SwanBitcoin Telegram room. I don't know who's in there, and like, they're all using anonymous names, and there's no like norms for behavior. It would just be a disaster.
I mean, look, you're going to get copycats. When someone sees something successful, you will get a copycat. But I think this is a winner takes all kind of experience, right? You'll get these niche little ones that maybe like a handful of people use. But I think also, Cory, I think their timing is interesting because over the last 8 weeks, Twitter's almost become unusable. Like, I tell you what page is unusable. My notifications page is unusable because it's Chamath, Winklevoss, Elon Musk promotions, the scam promotions, which are then each one is followed by 20 replies going, yeah, thanks. Oh, man, I can't believe it worked. Oh, wow, I just received 8.14 Bitcoin, which is frustrating. I've got the pump and dump groups pushing, and then I've got all the shitcoin promoters, so my notifications are fucked. So that's become unusable, which is a shame.
So you have the problem, I think, of getting tagged a lot because you're a big name. My feed is still okay. It's getting worse as Bitcoin, as the market kind of pumps a bit, it's getting a bit worse. But I do see why people will create a second profile and basically create lists for themselves and only sort of browse their list feed. And you're probably at that point where you have to create lists or just like grab Jan's list or grab somebody else's list of Bitcoiners and macro people. I think Preston has one, and just kind of browse that or use that as the seed for your own Twitter experience.
That's a good point. I did create a list a long time ago. I basically went on Hive and created a list of the Bitcoiners on there. I probably need to do that. It's becoming a kind of unusable. It was like this in the last bull run though. Bull runs bring out the scammers.
Yeah.
The fuckers.
Yep. I have an announcement, by the way, that I'm going to break on your show later, just when you want to.
I can't wait. You got to tell me now.
It totally hijacks this conversation. No, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. No. It hijacks this conversation.
But it's like.
So let's finish up the Clubhouse thing.
Yeah, it's done. We're finished. It's just
okay, we're done with the Clubhouse thing.
I tell you what. I tell you why I can't do it. I'm that bad. When I first dated my ex-wife, right? We first Christmas together at parents, and we got up in Christmas morning, and we had breakfast. And I was like, cool, we're going to do the presents. And they're like, no, we don't do presents till after lunch. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, we don't do presents till after lunch. I was like, no, this is bullshit. I want my presents now. And we have a, no, that sounds childish. But now I have a thing with my kids, like every Christmas, they can open a present on New Year's Eve. They can go under the tree, pick one, and they can have one on Christmas Eve. So when you say to me, I've got an announcement, I can't wait, dude.
All right. Well, I'm going to finish with one last thought on Clubhouse and something that I see that it enables that I don't see in media very often today. Definitely not in the Bitcoin space, or let's call it Bitcoin and the crypto space. Debates. When you get a debate on sort of neutral ground, where a podcaster says, "Okay, fine, I'm going to bring in these two people with these opposing views." They're super polite. They sort of follow like, very kind rules of engagement, and you basically miss out on what they actually think a lot of times. And so there's decorum, and it's polite, and it's going out on a podcast, and it's recorded for posterity. And so you understand why incredible minds like, Nick Carter or Dan Held would be polite when they're debating a shitcoiner or whatever. I totally get why they take it that way. The shackles are off on Clubhouse. You will see what people actually think. And if you're listening, you can listen to multiple smart people offering different points about a topic. And then you can also ask your question or chime in if you have something smart to say. And so the compounding of the intelligence that is sort of promulgated very, very quickly about a topic is just absolutely incredible. I often, as you know, have had the criticism of multiple podcasters that if they're tackling a subject with a guest and they don't actually have the time to really do the research to provide the counter arguments, then it's probably a good idea to bring a guest on to ride along to provide the counterpoints and ask those hard questions of, a Brad Garlinghouse or a Zach from BlockFi or whatever else, like whoever else is promoting their thing, Plan B.
Like, I recognize this of myself with my own podcast, right? Like, I recognize I started doing, like, I'm good at asking questions, right? But when I got somebody on who's not a Bitcoiner, someone like a Gary V, and they started asking questions, I'm not actually a great person for answering those. And that's why, like, with Gary V, I brought on Breedlove. That's why with Francis Coppola, I've brought on Nick Carter. Like, I recognize what you were saying. You
did, and I love that you've been doing that. I think it's absolutely huge. I mean, our whole model for Swan Signal was really just that, whether it was me hosting or Brady hosting or whatever, if we had, two really smart people arguing in front of us, then we'd be more likely to get to the truth faster. And the whole model for that for me was like when Tim Ferriss decided to have Nick Szabo on back in 2016 or 17 or whatever, my favorite 2 hour and 30 with Naval. And he was like, I'm going to bring Naval on so that I can ask everyman questions, but Naval can like dig deep and really ask the right questions and test things that don't make sense to an advanced audience. Anyway, and by the way, this is not about, honestly, like you and Pomp and some of the people that started podcasting like 2 years ago, like your knowledge of Bitcoin at this point and your ability to make the counterpoints, in particularly about Bitcoin, is like off the charts 99th percentile. So that's not the issue. The issue much more comes if somebody comes on to talk about like Ethereum or Ripple or whatever, and that's where you need to ride along.
Yeah, I agree, dude. Like, you're totally right. I recognize it with my own show. I've started doing it. By the way, I think you guys are doing a great job with Swan as well. Like, you bring really interesting people together. So I commend you on that as well, dude.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we definitely spend most of the time on guest selection and thinking about the pairings. That's probably the most active channel in the team Slack, is thinking about who to bring together and whether that dynamic would be good and things like that. I really like throwing parties with the right people.
All right, man. Give me your announcement. The announcement. I want to hear it. That's what I'm thinking.
All right. Okay. So I think a lot of people know that Max and Stacy invested in Swan and help us out and advise, and we do a lot of stuff with their show, Orange Pill Podcast. So this fall, it'll be either the last week in September or the first week in October in Palm Springs. Orange Pill in the Desert, co-sponsored by Orange Pill and Swan. Boom. Yeah. So it'll probably be like 225 people. It'll be 150 Bitcoiners that know their shit. And it'll be about 75 influencers. So it'll be like, actors, rappers, writers, things like that.
Do I count as knowing my shit? Do I get
Yeah. Yeah. You will be there.
Of course, dude. When is it? Sorry.
So, basically, obviously, like COVID allowing and SoCal is blowing up, but we think it'll be clear by the end of September.
I'll literally take all the vaccines. Just let me get on a plane. I'll come out. I'll be there, dude. I love it. Anything I can do to help, you give me a shout, man. But yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there.
It's going to be really sort of content focused. So we're going to have a bunch of different sets and tables, and we're getting like separate Wi-Fi for media to broadcast. And I think you'll be able to shoot like 30 interviews or something over a couple of days.
Sweet. Yeah, maybe I'll probably just get wasted, to be honest. So
there's that too.
Do a couple.
Why not both? Go Matt and Marty style and do both.
Drug podcast, dude. I struggle enough sober.
Exactly.
Dude. Right. So listen, I want to talk to you about Wall Street Bets. I just made a show about it, had some guests on that really helped. I understand a little bit more, but I came out of it with a couple of things. So I was very much on the fuck Robinhood, you bastards train. But some people gave me a very, very honest and accurate reason as to why Robinhood did have to stop the buying of GameStop. I had a very good conversation with Bill Barheit and explained structurally why that happened. I also spoke to Hester Peirce at the SEC, and she explained some things to me. So there's a few things to go through. We've got to talk about what happened. We've got to talk about culturally what it means, and then we need to talk about, you forwarded me a tweet, but essentially the plumbing, which is the problem. So let's kick off with, from your eyes, what went on with GameStop?
Well, I mean, I think the headline takeaway is that Robinhood users realized what everybody in the venture and startup industry knew a long time ago, which is that they're the product and that the customer is Citadel and Knight and a couple of others that they sell their flow to. I think that was kind of the main takeaway, that Robinhood does not actually work for their users. They work for their customers, and their users are what they sell to their customers.
Do you think that in itself is slightly unethical in that it is giving Citadel a head start?
Not if you disclose it.
But they didn't originally. I don't know if you know this, but I looked it up.
It's in the terms of service, isn't it? Okay, well, they got fined initially for letting Citadel front run every single trade with their black box algorithms.
I think it was more because they didn't disclose to their customers how they made their money accurately. They got a $65 million fine from the SEC and a bit of a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Well, if you've known me at all, which you do, because we've talked and see me on Twitter, I just think it's morally reprehensible to use shady marketing or false marketing and promote yourself as something that you're not. And it happens to be a really good business strategy, and people can get ahead with that. And in a free market, people are totally welcome to set up that business model and market themselves with rob from the rich and give to the poor and everything else that they've done to democratize trading or whatever. And it's not that they don't offer a product that even if you knew exactly what it was, a lot of people would still use it because it's free stock trades. That's enough, right? But this free market also means a free marketplace of ideas. And so it's totally also within the rights of anyone that wants to point out that, hey, users, by the way, you're the product and you're getting front run on every single trade. And if you ever get stuck in a situation, they're not going to have your back because they can't, because of the things you discovered talking to Hester and Bill. They're not going to continue to, enable the trade that you want to put on because they are just an agent for Citadel. They're just like a market maker. They have to go, they're the car salesman out front that has to go in the back and ask the manager, and the manager is saying no.
Well, so the interesting side of that is that even if you're well, fuck Robinhood, I'm going to go and use something else. I'm happy to pay for my trades. I don't want fee-free trading. It doesn't really change anything because it requires everyone. As long as there's enough critical mass in Robinhood, Citadel are still getting the data.
So Citadel is, in my understanding, they do actually take a little sliver by being the market maker, and kind of there is some spread in there on every single trade. It's not just the data, I think, but I could totally be wrong. I don't care.
Yeah, it's a funny scenario, dude. I was most of my energy on it was just sitting by. I wasn't going to go in and long it. Even at $130, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I don't trade stocks. I don't understand this. But I was cheering on from the sidelines, right? I was like, these are our heroes. Take down a hedge fund. And I don't even know the implications. I don't know the implications of something like Melvin Capital, going bust. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that money means. I don't know if that's somebody's pension. I just don't know. I don't know the consequences. But at the same time, I was just sat there going, fuck you, this is brilliant. Take them down.
Yeah. The playbook, was this last weekend or the weekend before? I'm losing track of time. I think it was just last weekend. So I was telling people, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that basically the way to, break the line, assume that they're kind of like union strike workers at Wall Street Bets, the way to break the line is just to scare them And I figured that, the PR war room teams on Saturday and Sunday were just basically trying to get people to stop buying and to start selling. And that's all you had to do. And the idea that all of these individual people wouldn't be scared by enough media reports in, online and on TV saying that the SEC was going to come for you guys for colluding or whatever, which is complete BS, by the way.
Yeah.
That's literally that's what the financial information industry does. Like there's an entire social network called StockTwits, run by Howard Lindzen, where literally it's people online recruiting other people to their ideas. Every time you see, Kyle Bass or any other, short fund manager attacking a ticker or a currency or whatever, they're literally putting out media, often biased, often outright false, trying to recruit other people and their capital to their side of the trade. So it completely destroys the entire, or like 2/3 of the hedge fund model if you're not allowed to recruit other people to your trade anymore. So they would never actually pass a rule in any way that would very selectively attack one subreddit.
Well, the hedge funds themselves all know each other. I'm sure they talk. I'm sure they have their conversations in the Hamptons. They've got a lot of accumulative capital. I'm sure that shit goes on with them. And the big difference is that side's quite opaque. The thing I really liked about the Wall Street Bets thing, it was transparent. It was out there. It's like, this is what we're going to do, and we're doing this. And they just told everyone. There was no secrets. It was transparent. And kind of anyone who's into free markets, anyone who's anti-regulation should like this, because this was just out there and transparent. I still feel like they got screwed over, dude. Even with the explanation to me of the prime broker stuff and the capital, but essentially, am I right in thinking what it essentially came down to is Robinhood didn't have enough capital parked with the prime brokers, and the prime brokers felt there was too much risk?
It's not even just too much risk. Like they literally didn't have the cash posted for those positions, essentially, that their users were taking. So if everybody's long, then the net position that's posted at their prime broker leaves them very exposed. Usually when Robinhood has trades going like long short, they net out, and basically the net long is all that is required to be posted at the prime broker. It's not too dissimilar from like, Swan or, Coinbase or somebody like that. And I think Cash App does this as well, where you front your users the money for instant ACH. So that magic thing when you smash buy, but like your bank in the legacy fiat system didn't actually magically make that money appear in your Swan account in a split second. We're actually lending the customer the money and fronting them the money until the cash actually arrives via ACH bank transfer at Swan. So it's kind of like that. And if we run out of liquidity, so we keep a lot of money in that account. We borrowed a ton of money to keep in that account so that we can front people during market pumps or market dumps when everybody smashes buy. And but if we run out of that liquidity, then we would not be able to sell more Bitcoin. And so we'll, in the future, we'll do things like reduce the limits, which is what you see with Robinhood. Like they reduced the number of shares or the number of options that you could buy in that particular ticker. If we have a crazy pump day and people want to smash buy 20 million on that day, we'll probably start reducing the amount that people can buy in that day. Just like you see with Cash App, when they run out of Bitcoin, what they're really running out of is their fiat reserve to front people that money. There's plenty of Bitcoin for sale. We don't have the fiat.
Interesting. Because what I wanted to know is, they raised $1 billion and then they raised another 2.4 billion in 4 days. In my head, I was thinking, right, so there was a phone call between the prime broker and Robinhood at some point. Did they wait till they ran out of liquidity? Did they warn them? Did they say, look, we've got a feeling you need to have some more liquidity on the books? I mean, they turned around the fundraise in 4 days. Could it have been a case of they said, okay, you've got 24 hours, we need a check from you? Could Robinhood have phoned up Andreesen and said, look, we need $1 billion, we're running out? I'm wondering.
This is what we can never know, but cui bono. You know who benefited in the appearance of it, and the likelihood is that Robinhood dragged their feet to serve their masters, right? Because they could tell that they ought to draw on that line of credit. So they already had a line of credit of, let's say, $1 billion from Goldman and JP Morgan that they did draw hundreds of millions of dollars from, but they did it very late after shutting down trading. they could have forecast like, oh, wow, it looks like we're out of balance. It's never been like this before. It's very likely we're going to get this 3:30 a.m. call asking us to like post a lot more before market opens. And they didn't do anything about it. And then they drew on it later that afternoon after essentially diffusing the whole rally by not letting people go long on.
They killed it.
What was it, Friday or whatever?
Because if you look at the chart, I put a thing on Twitter. I was like, this is where they fucked you. Because at the time I was very suspicious. And it was like $40 from the spike. It was like 9 o'clock in the morning Eastern. I could be wrong about that. I might be wrong about that. And then it killed the long. It killed the whole movement. I mean, who knows where it would have gone, but it killed it. And I was just like, if it would have been beneficial, if there was something going on where it would have been beneficial for Citadel or Melvin to have been able to be trading and they needed to post more capital, would they have found that money? And I just think, I bet they probably could.
Oh, of course they would, because that's the client.
And that's the thing that's bullshit to me, Cory.
Well, it's just you understand which system you are a part of and that the system does not work for you, the retail guy with the free trades where, you're the product, just like you are on Facebook.
Well, yeah. So, but this is the point where I think culturally what's going on is important now, because it's like every one of these situations is like a crack in the system. Like every time something like this happens, like we all know, we get fucked. We know that essentially, like Wall Street has an office within the White House. We know everyone knows what happened in 2008. We know, like, I think it was one banker went to jail, but pretty much no one went to jail. We know millions of people lost their homes. We know that they were foreclosed upon. We know the FDIC paid out for the banks. We know Mnuchin. The fucker, Mnuchin, started One West.
We know Mnuchin is the one that frickin', bought IndyMac, turned it into One West. The office is this sparkling building on Wilshire Avenue and like 4th Street in Santa Monica. And they foreclosed. Steve signed off on false pretense foreclosures on hundreds of thousands of people.
Robo signed. We know that. We know they flipped the bank and made a cool, whatever it was, couple of $1 billion on it. We know Kamala Harris had the opportunity to prosecute, and she chose not to. We know Mnuchin. Is it Mnuchin or Mnuchin? We know he donated, and we know Soros donated to our campaigns. Look, there's all these different connections.
I think it's actually it's Munchkin. It's Munchkin. Munchkin. Yeah, he's a small man. Munchkin.
Fuck him. Anyway, we know he's a prick, right? No, but we do, and we know all of these people. But like, look, you get away with it. Like, they get away with it. But now this one was so blatant. It was like right in front of our faces. They did it. They just fucked people in front of our faces. And I was just like, okay, I'm glad I own Bitcoin. It's part of the revolution now. I feel like it's almost like people have started to realize, actually, we don't have to take this shit anymore. We don't have to. We can get together on Reddit and we can take down these hedge funds. And we can get together and we can buy Bitcoin. Fuck them. That's why I was saying to you, like, the cultural thing's important here.
This really helped a lot of people at least see the matrix. And, we always start with, like, what is money? This is helping people see, like, what are markets? And so the same way that a lot of people have, started to understand classical economics and realize that Keynesian economics is bullshit and just kind of serves the fiat masters, I think this is letting people go a click deeper on the structure of markets. Even just seeing a number go up that fast in fiat terms, which we've seen with Bitcoin, right? It is a shiny object that sits there on the ticker. It'll always be there for people to look at. There's enough, video and audio and written content now to go back and for people to look at what happened and the fact that that was possible, and also see how it was, how they saved their asses. Michael Jordan's partners down at Melvin Capital and Ken Griffin with his $200 million penthouse in New York or whatever. They were able to save their asses like rather easily and laughing about it. I shared on Clubhouse a few times. I actually have I lived in Chicago for years and I was friends with a lot of the prop traders and stuff like that. And one of my buddies back there is still friends with Ken Griffin. My old roommate worked for him, like high up in the finance department. I've been to weddings with Ken. Anyway, one of them was texting me an exchange that he had with Ken on text, and he sent me screenshots of it from like Wednesday or Thursday last week. and like Ken's just laughing about it because like that, I don't know what they think is going on here. Like, this is funny. I guess I'm a Twitter celebrity now. And you saw the same thing with Stephen A. Cohen. Like, he jumped on Twitter for a couple days and he was just laughing. And, it's just not it's not a thing for them. Citadel knows everybody. They've given Janet Yellen $800,000 for speeches in the last 18 months. Ben Bernanke is on their board, like, or is an advisor to the firm. He's on the compensation rolls. Like, even if there were something illegal, which there isn't, they actually did everything legally. It was in the terms of service that people signed when they signed up for Robinhood. Even if there was something illegal, they wouldn't have been punished.
But the cracks are showing, dude. I feel like it was an important moment. I don't want the steam to run out of it, though. I feel like there's momentum against this. I just don't know how to. I mean, all I can do is just bring people into Bitcoin.
Well, I would say, I think a really good angle, and maybe this is a show, because we've had a lot of shows about what is money. Mm-hmm. I think we need a lot more shows for Bitcoiners and Bitcoin adjacent communities about what are markets. I think that we all need to level up big time. Like, how does the stock market actually work? How does the bond market actually work? There are only a handful of people that really explain, the Eurodollar system well. And, it's probably incumbent for now, while some of us in the Bitcoin media space are kind of leveling up, to really point people toward the really good episodes from Macro Voices or from Preston, where they've actually had people explain these specific topics, like the promulgation of dollars globally through the Eurodollar system, which just means like international banks outside the US lending dollar denominated debt to anybody. That creates more dollars in the system, right? Offshore dollars. So that topic, how exactly does the stock market actually function? And then how does the bond market actually function? And we all kind of need to level up in those areas.
That sounds like a Raoul Pal plus Lynn Alden show for me.
Yeah. I mean, that would be a really good use of Raoul's brain and experience.
Rather than shitcoins. I know what you're saying there. Look, he's my friend. I'm working on that with him. I'm working on that with him. I'm not going to call him out.
I talked to Ash for an hour and a half last night on Clubhouse in front of 1,000 people. The RV crypto editor.
I'm working on Raoul. I think he'll look. Some of us have to go through it. I went through it. I shitcoined for a long time. I get it.
He's going to come around when all his picks that he's shoved into people's portfolios go down 98, 99% in 2023. Yeah. Then he'll come around.
There is a realistic prospect. Look, I'm not a fan of Ethereum, but I think Ethereum's here to stay for a while anyway. I think it survives another cycle, no problem. I think it appreciates in value. I think there's just a lot of activity on there. It's the Vegas of crypto for me. You go in and you try and get out alive with as much money as you can, but I don't think it's going anywhere. I think there's a significant difference between Ethereum and then something like Polkadot or Cardano, or that's just not being used, or like little to no usage.
Yeah, in the long term, there's no difference. In the short term, there is.
Yeah, exactly. But look, that is what it is. I'd rather talk to you about Bitcoin, man. All right, listen, dude, it's been a big year, man. It's like we're like 1 month in.
It's bananas, isn't it? I can't believe the flood of news that's come on. I'm thrilled, by the way, with the MicroStrategy conference was great. Some really good content, in particular that first hour that he did with Ross Stevens at NYDIG was fantastic. I'm so glad that Ross decided to go. You've probably talked to Ross. I've had a few conversations with him. I know Breedlove talks to him a lot, but I don't think people knew what a hardcore Bitcoiner this dude is. And he's been that way since like 14, 15, just quiet about it.
Right. No, I've never spoken to the guy. I don't know him.
Oh, really?
No, he's not on Twitter, right?
No, he's not on Twitter, but I'm happy to connect you guys if you like. I'm sure he'd do a show now that he's out there.
So I thought it was awesome. I mean, his conversation was like one of those whoa moments. Like it was like every line that came out of his mouth was a banger. You could quote tweet that.
Yeah, well, it's because they're well practiced, and he's tried 100 more that you never heard that didn't make it off the cutting room floor in all these meetings to build up his $25 billion pipeline. I think that's what people sometimes miss about Saylor as well. Like, the dude is literally one of the best salesmen on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the definition of a really good salesman is someone who impresses you, but leaves you still liking them without being jealous. And like you're rooting for them, but you're also impressed by them. And the guy has been doing international enterprise sales to governments and large corporations for 30 years. He knows what a good line is, and he knows how to deliver it. And Ross is the same way. He's been selling to large portfolio managers and capital allocators for many, many, many years, including at Goldman and other places. And he's spectacular at choosing the right analogy, the right turn of phrase, the right delivery. I mean, they're both just incredible showmen, and we are lucky to have them on Team Bitcoin.
Well, so the thing on my mind, literally right now on my mind is, so you know that right now the government is thinking of banning, let's say, private crypto, which might lead to Bitcoin. So Balaji's written this article. It's a long article. It's fucking brilliant. But why India should buy Bitcoin. And I tweeted out, because the interesting thing about MicroStrategy is that they went big when Bitcoin was like, was their average by about 11,000? Was it 11 or something?
The first one, yeah. The first 425 came in around 11,111 is what he said.
Yeah. And I imagine some people looked at that and go, God, that's a massive buy, but it's a shame you didn't get in at like 3,000, right? And then he did it again at, I can't remember, was it like 23,000 or 22,000 by the time? Because everyone front run him. And again, it seemed like a lot of money. Now it seems like they seem like good buys. But a lot of the other companies are thinking, shit, I wish we'd have done it then. Now, what's in my mind, what I tweeted out is like every company wishes they were as early as MicroStrategy. Whichever country goes first will be the envy of the others. So which nation is going to be the MicroStrategy of Bitcoin?
Absolutely. And that's the true of every category. Like which endowment was first, which mayor was first. We're watching Suarez down in Miami, about to throw down. Hopefully he does. Which county, like Orange County blew up in the savings and loan crisis or whenever they went bankrupt. Maybe it was 91 or 92. And that one, I think whatever they were doing was shady. What if Orange County, one of the richest counties in the world, as far as tax base, even though they mismanage it, what if they decide to save themselves in their pension fund by throwing down 2% in Bitcoin?
I'll tell you something as well. Look, I'm jumping all over the place. I want to come back to this nation state thing. But do you know what I think the most interesting thing that Michael Saylor's done is? You'd have to answer it. I think the most interesting thing he's done is these two, was it like $10 million purchases he's done?
That he keeps on putting like, we just bought 275 Bitcoins according to our treasury strategy. We just bought 311 Bitcoins. I love it, dude. It's so cool.
I'll tell you why I love that. Probably for the same reason that you do, right? It's given a message. It's not about how much you've bought. It's the fact that you keep any excess cash you'll put into Bitcoin. Look, I do it. You probably do it. I mean, I do it.
Yeah.
Mine's more like 0.3 of a Bitcoin if I'm even lucky, right? If it's a good month. But what I'm saying is like the same mentality. It's like, I don't want to hold on to these pounds. You don't want to hold on to these dollars. And he's given that message is like, we're still buying. We don't care what the fucking price is. I think that is so important.
Yeah, you basically keep your working capital and some emerging expenses in fiat and everything else in Bitcoin, because you're on a personal Bitcoin standard or a company Bitcoin standard.
Yeah. So back to the nation state thing. I mean, I don't know about you. Like, they must be looking at it. Right, let's forget Iran and North Korea and Venezuela, the obvious ones. Like, I think there's an obvious reason why those countries are looking at free power, cheap mining, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm really interested if we get like a Sweden or a Denmark or a Norway or a Belgium.
I don't see it being a European country as like the first to go. I mean, outside of the rogue states, which are already stacking, and I think some of the stands are natural. So the West Asian countries, but it's a pittance, right? As far as a major economy, like a top 20 economy that would do it, honestly, I think the one with the most incentive to do it and who has the culture and has already spent the most time on it, and I may have selective perception here because of the amount of time that I spend there, but I think it's Turkey.
That's a really, really interesting call. That's the last country I went to, dude, before the lockdowns a year ago.
We talked about it.
Yeah. I was in Istanbul.
Before you went, I think.
Yeah, I was in Istanbul. Loved it.
Yeah, so they have like a mild inflation problem, but everybody there understands inflation because they've had either 3 or 4 hyperinflations in total, like, redoing of their fiat money in the last 40 years. So they're kind of like Argentina light when it comes to that. And they never have like the 100% inflation, but they always kind of have like the 12 to 18%, like always repricing, like super annoying.
Yeah.
People don't stack, like if you're not stacking sats in Turkey, you stack flats. Everybody just buys apartments and rents them out.
Right. Okay.
So like that's what people don't understand. Like hyperinflation doesn't mean shit to rich people in Argentina and Turkey because they don't keep any of their money in fiat anyway. They have land, they have flats, they have businesses, and they can just like reprice everything with, whatever the new denomination is. But what Turkey does have is, outside of India, it has the most per capita. Well, I mean, I'm sure their per capita gold ownership is probably higher than India because way fewer people and they're richer. But they also have the most percentage of the population that owns some Bitcoin. There are Bitcoin ATMs and Bitcoin stores like all over Istanbul. Like as you're just driving down a main boulevard, you see the Bitcoin logo and the word Bitcoin all over the place. And they've had people in there with Erdogan and AKP, politics aside, they've had people in there talking about Bitcoin since 2014. BTC Turk is a very strong exchange with tight spreads and like really good management that's politically connected. They're definitely going to do a CBDC, and like that's just really close to getting over the hump and having some Bitcoin. And they also have no problem whatsoever hiding purchases by the government. It's not like they have the same kind of transparency there that we do here. So you don't actually know what the government owns with a high degree of certainty there. So they could already have quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I wonder if, a lot of these rogue states, and like Turkey's kind of like the lubrication between Russia and Iran and Syria.
Yeah.
And I wonder if I do wonder if these states are actually kind of having these backdoor conversations about Bitcoin. I've got no idea what they do, but yeah, the first one to do it and then announce it is a game changer.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I think the calculus is basically you're shining a light on the relative worthlessness of your own fiat currency. So as long as your own fiat currency maintains, some usefulness as a tool of policy or enriching yourself or positioning your country, basically as long as people are dumb enough to accept yuan in payment for things, what's their incentive to switch off of yuan? Because it's, they lie about their growth rates and that props up the yuan, and they've printed 30 times more than they had since 2008, and people keep accepting it. They keep on being able to buy up like land and pipelines and all kinds of shit with their fake money, just like we do. Like, what's their incentive to move off of it?
If you could print $1 billion tomorrow and buy Bitcoin with it, you would. I mean, they can do that,
right?
That's the thing they can do that we can't do.
So that's that speculative attack, and Saylor's showing, he's showing the play to the nation states, as you point out. You're right, and somebody's going to do it. I don't know who.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So what else is on your mind, dude?
Well, while you think of something to really dive into, I'll at least just announce, that we launched Swan Private Client Services, which is really exciting because a lot of people in the US have had access to Swan.
You've had massive growth, haven't you?
Yeah. We'll probably start sharing numbers a bit in Q2. Mm-hmm. But it's a much, much, much bigger business than people realize, and it's been profitable for quite a while. So we've never taken venture money, and we will never have to. So no one will ever force us to have a tough conversation about lending out our Bitcoin or selling shitcoins or anything like that. We will never have to.
Well, I've got something interesting we can talk about. Do you hold Bitcoin on the balance sheet?
Let's get to that. I did want to just announce that we launched Swan Private, and that the aforementioned Robert Breedlove is a full-time member of Swan now and is the managing director of Swan Private, and that is now available globally to everyone around the world. It's only for purchases by wire transfer of 50,000 and up. So anything from 50,000 to 100 million, we can handle those buys. But yeah, we're pricing right in line.
Is that your OTC desk, basically?
It's our OTC desk. Yeah, it's basically like Swan OTC, Swan Private. That's pretty much what it is. It's, onboarding calls, phone numbers, white glove service, the whole deal. Pricing right there, the same as like a Coinbase Prime or a NYDIG or something like that. getting Bitcoin from the source, the whole deal.
He's such a fucking hero of mine, Breedlove.
Yeah. Well, he this was funny. I was like, did you watch the Michael Saylor, Ross Stevens? Because he's still in Bali. I think he's traveling today, coming back to the States. And he was like, well, I'm going to, but I helped Michael prepare for the interview, and then I helped Ross prepare for the interview. So I kind of know what they said.
Doesn't surprise me. The dude is on another level, man. Like, I have to write, like, if I'm going to read something he's written, I have to put my phone away. I have to get into a safe, calm space and focus. Like, his shit is legit.
Yeah.
Like,
it deserves candlelight, to be honest. Like, you should actually print it out and read it by candlelight.
I told him it's like the acid of like Bitcoin. Like, I read his shit and I feel like I'm going on a trip.
Yeah.
And he's so tall and handsome as well, the fucker. You got it all.
Listen, I'm not going to argue. So happy to have him on board. We also just we're launching a Spanish language show, which is going to be pretty cool. I don't know what we're going to call it yet, but it's going to be for all of LATAM and all the Spanish speakers in the US. So that should be really fun. That's going to be Crypto Bastardo, Pablo of 7Z, who you see on Twitter all the time. He's one of our engineers now out of Spain. Camilla Campton, who's I think she's Camilla Bitcoin or Bitcoin Camilla. Yeah. So she's full-time at Swan now. She's our social media manager. So the three of them are going to kind of host a Spanish language show for us.
Yeah. See, I've been asked a couple of times. I've been asked to do a Spanish show, and then what's the other one I was asked to do? Is it Chinese? Yes, I think it was like Mandarin. I was like, well, I'm not even going to think about that. But the Spanish one, I was like, how do I do this? Like, how do I get this show translated? It will sound weird. It won't sound like a natural conversation. Like, didn't even cross my mind just to get Spanish people talking. But like,
yeah, it turns out they can talk about Bitcoin too.
Yeah.
No, I did. I interviewed with I forget what the name of the show is, but it was one of the Venezuela shows. Maybe it was Crypto Bastardo, and I went on the show, and it kind of works. Like, he asks you a question in English, and then you answer, and then he translates your answer. But it's slow going.
Yeah, I've been to I've been to Venezuela where he records.
Nice.
Yeah, it's cool. He's a good dude. I like him a lot, man. Anyway, listen, I want to talk to you this last thing before we shoot out. So, you hold Bitcoin on a balance sheet, right?
We do, yeah. Actually, like, all of it except for what we need to pay out next month. It's slightly irresponsible.
Well, look, I've done that. I've done that since June of last year. And I don't think I will do it. I might not do that like as much in 2022. It might be like, I don't know, buy some dips if it comes back down, if it's like the end of a bull market. But I've done it as well. But what it's done, which is really interesting, it essentially doubled the amount of capital kind of have. And I've mentioned this in a couple of interviews. I did an interview with Jamie from Hut 8 the other day, and we were talking about the really cool thing about this is all you have to do is if you have cash flow issues is leverage your Bitcoin. That's all you have to do now. And actually holding this hard asset puts you in a much better position. Like, I mean, I haven't raised money. You haven't raised money. I don't want to raise money. I want to keep building my media company and own it 100%. Is that kind of your similar strategy? Knowing you've got this asset that you can leverage?
Yeah, I mean, we could. What I'd like to see is those rates come down. When you have perfect, pristine collateral that can be traded, you can do a margin call instantly at any time into a 24/7 super liquid market. The rates on that should be more like 2% or 3% a year because it's the best collateral that's ever existed. So the market right now being at like 10, 11% or whatever makes it less attractive. Like, I would only take that out if I knew I was going to pay it back pretty quickly. So we might do it kind of like short term and, cover a month's expenses if we were a little short on fiat and didn't want to sell Bitcoin or whatever. But I'd pay that loan back as soon as I possibly could because I just think that interest rate is too high.
Why do you think it is high?
Because the people that are actually lending to essentially the agents, the bundlers, the Unchains and the BlockFis of the world that are doing these Bitcoin-backed loans, the people that they supply don't understand Bitcoin's quality as collateral yet. And so they're treating it as kind of like a risky loan. Because like an Unchained isn't taking the 10, 11%. They're borrowing money at, whatever percent and then, taking a sliver on top of it. That's what BlockFi does. That's what they all do, right? So they have lenders that come in and give them big piles of capital. Those rates are too high. As more people attend Ross Michael conversations, they will drive that price down because they understand the quality of the collateral and how easy it is to margin call it. And we'll have lower and lower and lower rates for borrowing against Bitcoin.
You could end up with one of the biggest Bitcoin companies that has not borrowed any money.
That has what?
That's not taken on capital.
Well, we took capital, but we had a very strict rule. Yeah. But we've only taken it from angels, and we've never taken it from a fund. Most of those angels are actually like fund managers and sort of, well-connected finance people or just kind of well-known people in the space. But it's a pittance. Like, we barely gave away any of the company. And, I think that was just a testament to building with Bitcoiners that are good at what they do and, are very motivated, frankly.
Do you know the interesting thing about, like, I spotted it early on. Like, I love the team you've recruited. It's very smart the way you've built that team. It's very smart. Like, if you have built like an all-star team of Bitcoin evangelists, it's brilliant. It's genuinely brilliant. I really admire it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we just hire from Bitcoin Twitter, so hit us up if you have special skills that would be helpful to Swan. Just be noisy on Twitter or have a podcast or a newsletter or something. But yeah, it's been interesting. It's like we have, Gigi on the team. He's just a spectacular engineer. I don't know if people know that about him because he's such a good writer and speaker, but he's one of the best. I've been in tech for 20 something years. Jan's been in tech for 20 something years. Like, Gigi is one of the best engineers on the planet. And I don't know if people realize that. So it's great to have him on the team. Obviously, Brady and Brendan Quittam's full-time now as well.
Brandon's great. I'm such a fan of Brandon.
Yeah, he's great. So, Brecky is full-time now, has been actually for a long time, but it's good. It's really fun to spend time with these people. It's really motivating. I wake up and I can't wait to see what happened because I'm on the left coast and a lot of shit's already happened in Europe and in Chicago and New York before I even wake up. And so I'm always playing catch up and seeing what clever Bitcoin things people have posted and said. And plus there's a company we're running.
It's funny you say that because when I go to bed, I get this little bit of FOMO. I was like, what's going to happen if I go to sleep? Some shit's going to happen. You guys are going to do something. So, all right, man. Well, listen, look, if people want to follow you, find out more about what you're doing, tell them where to go, dude.
Yeah, sure. SwanBitcoin.com, SwanBitcoin on Twitter, YouTube.com/SwanSignal. Grab a free copy of Inventing Bitcoin at SwanBitcoin.com/freebook. It's my personal favorite. It's the one that the Mooch, or I guess his partner in Skybridge, recommended when they did their launch for the Skybridge fund. He said, everybody go read Jan's book. So I think that's a good endorsement. And I'm Cory Klippsten on Twitter, and I'm also on Clubhouse more than I should be, as is the entire Swan team. So follow the Cafe Bitcoin is a group that we coordinate with a bunch of other folks like, Guy Swan and a bunch of other people contributing to that and kind of running rooms and stuff. But it's a fun place to engage. It's centralized as hell. Hopefully there's an amazing sort of, Tor, BitTorrent style network that does the same thing in the future. But for now, that's where the shitcoin conversation is happening, and that's where they're attacking Bitcoin. And you're a soldier if you come on and help, save noobs from flaming arrows being shot directly at their faces.
Be a Bitcoin soldier, man. Well, listen, love this. Welcome to come on whenever you want to. Just reach out to me. Maybe we'll do this again in 6 months. Maybe in person. We will do this.
See you in Palm Springs.
In Palm Springs with margaritas. We could do this.
Well, we'll see you in Miami, right? For Bitcoin 2021. Are you going to make it, maybe?
Is it April?
They'd moved it to June. It's June 3rd or 4th, yeah.
Like I say, I will literally take every fucking vaccine. I don't care. Let me get on a plane. So once they've done the vaccines, once they've done the vaccine passports, I will be there. I'll be in Miami. But it just comes down to that. If I get on a plane, I will be there.
Awesome. Well, great spending some time with you, Peter. Thanks for having me on.
Man. Peace out, dude.
Cheers.